Okay, I think we're mostly all just making his way back, so we'll make a start in just a second.
Yeah, boy.
So, we've got a half an hour session now with David from Help Musicians. David's an engagement officer from Help Musicians. David's going to tell you a little bit about Help Musicians and the support that's on offer. And then we're going to have a bit of it, well, hopefully not too general a chat about funding, because we'll try and give you some specifics and give you some things to take away in the same manner as how we tried to run the panel event. Do you want to introduce yourself, David, and then we'll get cracking in terms of how to explore what Help Musicians can provide people in the room.
Yeah, no probs. My name's David. I'm an engagement officer at Help Musicians. What does that mean? I go out into the wider community and help people access our support that's there. For those of you who don't know who Help Musicians are, we're an independent music charity. So we're not like a funder in the sense, although we do funding. When I say independent, it means that we don't take money from central government. All our support comes from the generosity of other people. And yeah, we support musicians. Predominantly, it's what we call professional musicians, so people earning a percentage of their income from music. And that support is split into kind of two main sections, which is health and welfare and career development.
Real. Is it a membership? Do you have to be a member of Help Musicians?
We're not a membership body either. No.
Brill. So if you needed that type of support, you don't need to be a member, or there's no paid membership, or you can essentially apply for.
Yep.
And get in touch that way.
Yeah. So the charity our real name is the Musicians Benevolent Fund, and our trading name's Help Musicians. So the Musicians Benevolent Fund has been around since 1924. And if you think about it, right, in those days, like there was no really like a welfare state for people. So a lot of your social services were delivered by what's called friendly societies and benevolent societies. So Help Musicians was set up by a bunch of musicians to look after people when they got ill. So that's
brilliant.
Really.
So that might lead us on to what type of support is available for musicians. A bit like what we were speaking about just before the panel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of what types of support are offered, or what types of things that you can access, what types of needs musicians might have? Yeah,
so the thing that we're kind of known for is our health and welfare support. So basically, if a musician is faced with an illness or an injury, what we can kind of do is we can help them with their living costs for a period of time. So that's like pay their bills, their rent, their food costs, all that stuff. And we can also help pay for some medical treatments and stuff as well. We can also support people, not to sound too kind of morbid, but if people have a terminal illness, we can support up until the end of somebody's life, and also support their family for a little bit after that as well. And yeah, that's really, there's not like a set kind of thing that has to be, it could be any type of, physical or mental injury that somebody's kind of going through. We also have support for retired musicians who are maybe finding themselves in a difficult situation as well. And the other side of what we do is it's like career development stuff. So we've got grants for artists or musicians if they're wanting to go and do some recording, maybe attend a conference or something, or a period of learning. So can you do like a masterclass with somebody, and and it can also cover international travel as well. So the opportunities that we support are only just restricted to the UK. That's like the main bits of support.
Brilliant.
What we offer.
So just to gauge people's awareness of funding in general, not Help Musicians funding, but funding within the music industry. Do So to have a show of hands in terms of anybody who's either written a funding application before or has thought about writing a funding application before. Brilliant. So that's not unusual at all to have a relatively small percentage of a group of people about this size in our area. Yeah, funding is notoriously underused. Awareness is not where it should be, especially within the music industry and creative industries. And I think all those things can add up to being a barrier. Not to put you on the spot, but did you two write and submit a funding application or funding applications?
I've done a couple. I've successfully done the DYCP.
Oh, congratulations!
And I've just submitted for a project grant as well. So
amazing.
And I've done PRS Accelerator, but I didn't get that one. So.
Yeah, brill. So 2 out of.
I applied for Help Musicians as well and didn't get that. So.
Oh, brilliant! And that's why you're here today. Yeah.
All right. What did you apply for, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I can't remember. It was I think it was for help with album recording costs. Yeah, it was quite a generic thing. So.
Brilliant. Well done at DICP. That's great news. Brilliant. What about yourself?
I've been putting off one for about half a year.
Yeah. I know.
It's an ongoing open-ended one, which if it wasn't, I'd have applied by now. But
yeah. So sometimes you need that deadline to work towards. Yeah. And what about yourself?
I was looking at the music.
Next Gen, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Were you here yesterday? Yeah. Brilliant. So you heard a little bit about that from Michelle. Oh, wicked. Brilliant. Okay. So what we're going to use, a part of this session is to maybe look at some best practice when putting for an application. Obviously, David can give you so much information, but it's going to be Help Musicians specific, and the information that David will provide you doesn't mean that it'd be a surefire 100% win for the funding application. But I think there are some really helpful do's and don'ts maybe. Similar to what you heard in the first panel around, communications. So I think you heard a lot in the first panel about how festivals, for example, really appreciate a tailored and bespoke email to a person rather than a broad shot. All right. So many of the audience today, they were like further education students, higher education students. Maybe Chrissy explored that way a little bit. Maybe we start with, what's a common mistake maybe that you might see on an application? Is there something that comes up regularly?
Yeah, I think there's it's really what kind of trips a lot of people up is a lack of detail on what they're looking to do. So for talking sake, if you're looking to record, to record an album or an EP, I'd advise just writing you're applying to record an album and an EP. So some people just write that. What we want to see is we want to know who's the people you're working with and kind of why have you chosen to work with them. So that could be you're using this studio and this producer because, you've either got a rapport with them, they've been doing stuff that you like. It could just, it's as simple as that. What we want to know is who you're bringing in are you bringing in session players again? Tell us who you're bringing in, why you've kind of chosen to work with them, and just apply that to everything you're doing in your project. Again, so how are you going to release it? Are you going to bring in a radio plugger or a PR person? Tell us some of the campaigns that they've worked on. And a wee tip for you as well, if you go to a PR company and tell them, I'm going for funding, and they can write you up a wee plan as well. Just copy and paste that plan in. What's going to be the mechanism you're going to use to get this out there. So it's really just that level of detail that we kind of look for, and that's what it's that level of detail when you have all the applications and the people are kind of scoring them. That's what it comes down to. Well, who's going to get put towards what's called a panel, and even when it gets to a panel, they will make sure that's that level of detail.
Yeah.
So that's a common mistake.
That's it, because a lot of things are tying into advice from this morning in a roundabout way, I think. How much is an offer for artists who potentially want to apply for the fund to make a EP or make some music?
It goes up to £3,000. Which in the grand scheme of things, I know like other funders have bigger pots of money, but we also give you a chance to work with 2 business advisors as well, and that can cover various kind of things. Is it around stuff to do with like direct to fan sales, or is that to do with more your intellectual property and your copyrights? And what you can also do as part of your application is you can include that and say, like, you know, you want to work with these people because it's okay to have a knowledge gap, and it's okay to be like, well, part of this, we want to apply to this so we can work with these people and then, you know, implement their strategies. And what we've heard from, you know, a lot of musicians that have like, because we do these type of conference things a lot, we sometimes do stuff with the musicians that's been funded, and they've all said, like, you know, getting the money was great, but it was actually those working with those business professionals that's helped them keep generating money and stuff like that as well.
Brilliant. So in terms of, we asked a similar question around whether there's a kind of, not so much a career threshold, but in terms of eligibility, would there be a better time to apply for this fund than others in terms of, can it be your first release that you've ever put out? Can it be, you know, for an existing artist who's put quite a lot of music out? Is there a good time? Is there a better time to apply, I guess is what I'm asking.
For this type of funding for us with that, it's you've been earning 40% of your income from music and you're able to evidence that for kind of 2 years. Now, it could technically be a first release because we've had a lot of people who they started out careers as session players. So they've actually been doing session work for quite a number of years, and now they're moving into being an artist themselves as such. But I would say, like, the stuff that we've got, we should be announcing next year emerging musician support in terms of, I don't know what that looks like yet, so I don't know what get recorded, so I don't know what I can say about that yet. But we are going to have more emerging musician support. And the stuff that you guys would be eligible for would be, we have something called the Emerging Musicians Health Scheme. So if you guys have an injury or an illness, we can support you with the medical costs that's involved with that. And that could be even, you know, not just physical, but also we could support you with like some therapy, counselling, stuff like that as well.
Excellent. So that's quite, I mean, that's kind of key information in terms of that around eligibility. Because I think, as we've, you know, kind of briefly discussed, it's time consuming putting funding applications together. There's not really any surefire way of landing a funding application. You can include as much detail as possible. You can try and line it up with other things that are happening in your kind of professional career at that point, which all helps. But maybe one threshold for the help musicians is that, you know, that 40% of your earnings over the last 2 years has been made through. Is that music specifically, or can it be kind of creative industries, or is it?
It has to be music, but not, so that could be, you know, if you're doing session work, if you're doing some sound engineering work, whatever that, or teaching, if you're teaching on the side as well, or if you're teaching music full time. That's
Brill. So that links us back into Doyer, who was on the first panel, who's the artist Skinny Plembe, who also teaches. So he's got it releases music through Partisan Records, which is teaching as well. So maybe it's not a case of waiting until, well, it's not a case. So until waiting until you're earning 40% of your income through the music you release, even. Yeah, you can look at that much more broadly, I think. Excellent. Okay, so just but it's interesting that we've got somebody who's landed a successful application in the room, because that's amazing. In terms of writing that DYCP application, does some of that, you know, is that the first DYCP application you've written, or have you written ones in the past? I'm just wondering if this lands with somebody who's written a successful application.
That was the first one that I applied for, like the first grant ever, and I got it. I've not had any others since then, so it's maybe beginner's luck. But I think one of the the feedback I got is that because I was so specific about what I'd do with the money, so I was like, exactly like you were saying, I was like, I'm going to record an album with this person. I recorded my last album with him. So I've got a rapport with him. He's worked with all these people. I wanted to get vocal coaching and piano lessons and artist mentorship as well. And I listed who I was going to get it with, how much, like their website address, how much it was going to cost me per session, how many sessions I was going to have. So I had the plan really, really clear and really concrete, which I think helped. But obviously,
totally.
They must have thought there was some merit in what I did as an artist as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So just for a bit further context, we're talking about a piece of Arts Council England fund, which is called Developing Your Creative Practice. And I think it's up to £12,000 that you can apply for. But absolutely, like your detail, I think that sounds like it's been a really well thought out and well constructed piece of work. And it's graft, isn't it? It takes a lot of work to put into those funding applications. So it's brilliant to know that does come out though. Not all the time. Obviously, like I say, you can follow that structure to a point, can't you? I write a lot of funding applications myself, and I think when I look back on the funding applications that have been successful, and sometimes the ones that it is generally detailed. It's interesting that you bring budgeting, because I think Arts Council is obviously public money, so people want to see where it's been spent and how it's been spent. Brilliant. Okay. Also, so I think which is relevant to everybody who's in the audience, we spoke about doing or people working different roles. And obviously you're doing something very similar yourself, Dave. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your own professional practice, maybe outside of Help Musicians, and how that's maybe connected with the role that you're doing for Help Musicians?
Yeah, I suppose like before I worked at Help Musicians, I was just freelancing as a music tutor and was doing like community music projects, and then doing some stuff on the label in kind of management side as well. And I work with a German. She's based in Berlin, and she's a songwriter, and she writes big dance bangers. That's the my cup of tea, but pays. So we're just like, cool, let's do many of them. So I do that, but she's taking some time off just now, she's having a kid and stuff. So kind of, I'm pretty sure when she's wanting to get back into it, we'll pick that up again. So
what came first in terms of the Help Musicians role, and or engineering or running labels?
Probably the label side.
Yeah.
As well, and I did a sound engineering course. I had a studio in Glasgow and stuff, so I did that for a while as well.
So when you're looking at Help Musician, the role in terms of engagement, were there things that you could take into your application to the job role or into interview, from your professional practice that you felt helped with that, securing that role? Yeah,
the initial role in Scotland was, hey, we want to set up an office in Scotland, and it was like, well, I just set up in the past a label and stuff like that, and I was really aware of the funding landscape, specifically in Scotland and stuff, so I kind of knew what everything was, so it was kind of very transferable.
Interesting. So, and you knew that from, how did you come across that knowledge, I suppose, in the in terms of funding landscape? So are we talking like Creative Scotland?
Yeah, that's the Creative Scotland. That's our version of the Arts Council. I just had a studio, and it was like I was basically just going, where's the money? How do we get it? And then that's basically it.
So you'd written funding applications to, had you had Help Musicians funding or
no? I never.
Is that the first?
Never had Help Musicians funding. No.
Interesting. So I'm just thinking about again what we spoke about in this morning's panel about using, I suppose, not only using your creativity but being plugged into lots of different areas or lots of different networks. That's obviously really helped just across the board in terms of professionally being able to take that knowledge into an interview with Help Musicians and knowing that having that knowledge about funding.
Yeah.
Is going to be really useful in those types of roles.
Yeah, you guys ever heard of a record company called Chemical Underground? Chemical Underground. So it's Mogwai. They released like Mogwai and Arab Strap in the 90s. But the place where I was doing my kind of music workshops, the guy who was a music programmer there was a guy called Alan Woodward, who was in the Delgados, who launched Chemical. He's one of the owners of Chemical Underground. And I was chatting to him about, I was started this label, and I was like, I'm okay with these blog things. It was at the time when you used to send music to tons of blogs and stuff. I'm like, but how does radio and stuff like that work? And then he got me in Chemical, and then they showed me, how radio plugging works and distribution and all that. And then Stuart, one of the guys who also owns Chemicals, was my reference. So I had a pretty strong reference for going into Help Musicians as well. But I got to kind of see that, it was a knowledge exchange. I went in and they were just like, here's loads of vinyl, and I just send stuff out to blogs. And then, yeah.
Real. So is this starting to kind of add up? Even I think from what I've heard, this morning from both panels, again, there's might be a lot of information to digest, but there's definitely a common thread that everybody has spoken about in terms of having something that you're passionate about, and kind of utilising that to meet like-minded people. And generally speaking, those people are really helpful and really supportive of you and what you're doing in your career. And, I think what we're trying to speak about this morning is there is no way actually of kind of displaying the fear of networking, because the word itself is quite uncomfortable. It feels quite uncomfortable, but I think it doesn't have to be as formal as maybe, people might think it is.
Yeah. I think that's the importance about kind of networking and where your paths will meet with kind of people. And it's not trying to be like Machiavellian and planting all these seeds, but see if you're generally a nice person and you treat people nice, that goes a long way. I remember one time we just opened the studio in Glasgow, and we got an email from a guy who was working, I think it was at Gary Barlow's record label, and he was just wanting to connect with studios. And he says, yeah, come on in if you're in Glasgow, and we'll have a chat and stuff. And every other studio in the town just totally patched him, and we were the only people that met him. And then we took him to some of the kind of music haunts in kind of Glasgow, and we just, that was just us being nice. But then he goes on and he becomes like the head of BMG, and then Sony Publishing, and he's now the head of Insanity Music.
Yeah.
And then again, it's a guy, just because you've got that kind of nice relationship, you can put stuff to him and he usually gets back to you and is pretty honest with his feedback and stuff. So that's just the power of a kind of networking, but also the power of just, no being a dick and just being a nice person. Sorry for swearing there.
No, I think that's a key takeaway for everybody. In terms of that, so kind of bringing that back round into what people might put into funding applications, I think maybe just to reiterate that, because you mentioned maybe getting in touch with a PR company, it's quite a good way of it's quite a good introduction maybe, to basically say, I'm writing this funding application. If I got the funding, it'd go directly to you.
Yeah.
It's quite a good introduction to make for someone. There's obviously a two-way transaction going on there.
Yeah, and then I'm a big believer in trying to get musicians and the people in the creative side of it, is getting paid, man. But with PR people, man, just haggle them down to as little as you can give them, and just get them, take that quote, go to another company. Can you beat that?
Brilliant. I'm quite pleased David's not in the room to hear that, but yeah. Brilliant. But yeah, that's really good advice, yeah, and definitely follow that. Yeah. So a few questions around funding, and again, thinking about shaping funding applications. Maybe out a show of hands, who feels like they're kind of approaching maybe putting a funding application together? I know there's three of us that are working on funding applications.
Next year, not at the moment, because I've got a health condition. I'm waiting for a stem cell treatment on my knee, but it's all held back by ethics at the moment. Because people are just, they don't realise it's moved on from embryos. So yeah.
So if you've got a health condition, that 40% doesn't.
I'm not at 40%.
No, but doesn't matter. If you've got that underlying health condition, then it gets waived. Aye,
Yeah.
you just need to have earned something for
Actually,
music.
I don't want to like monopolise time. I'll tell you a story individually.
Yeah, please do. Get a chat afterwards.
Some, all good things, like.
Brill. Yeah, excellent. What about maybe people on level 3 H&D? What are we feeling about funding applications? Do you think it's something that you might look at in the future? Are you thinking about it, in the near future?
Never say never.
Yeah, I think certainly for yourself, Dan. Yeah.
It's like you're comfortable one day, you don't know what the next day brings.
We had a similar conversation, open mindset.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I would definitely, thinking about studying at level 5, I would definitely bring funding applications into your academic studies. You could, I know the content that you're studying at the moment. You could actually write a funding application as part of your academic studies. It'd make some really strong coursework.
Okay.
So you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone as well,
Right.
essentially. Because it really, everything like David's saying it's and other people that work about fun. It's all about planning. It's all about strategizing, and it's all about detail, and in an academic sense, referencing and so on and so on. So I think that'd be a really good idea. In that one, David, do you see? Is there a shift in funding priorities? Maybe I'm thinking about when people start shaping their applications. I think what we've told them so far is, be very detailed about what you're doing. Is there a value to looking at a funder's priorities, or do help musicians, for example, have a yearly priority or a regular change in priority? What they'd like to fund?
No, I think for us in the specific guidance, there's a bit that says what you can apply for and what you can't apply for, and I think it's about just keeping those things fresh and just making sure you're within that eligibility. If something kind of changes, then we would kind of just remove the fund or change the fund. But if it's up there and you're in that criteria, that is our priority, is just to help. We want to just try and have a place and a system where musicians are able to get on and earn an income.
Brilliant. So I think we've got people who are thinking about funding applications and potentially putting funding applications together. I'd like to leave some time where you can maybe speak to David about that, either as a smaller group or even on a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. Maybe one last question to wrap things up. Maybe for certainly FE students, would be, if a student leaves this room today remembering just one thing about Help Musicians, what would you like it to be?
There is support out there. Prioritising your kind of well-being as well is in a, especially if you're in a world of kind of freelancing where you're maybe working irregular hours and stuff. Just know that our whole existence is just to make sure that somebody's there trying to support you, and just know that if the time's right, then Help Musicians is there to help, and if we're not able to help, we'll do our best to signpost you to the people that will be able to kind of help you as well. I should also say that we also have a sister charity called Music Minds Matter, and that's a 24/7 helpline. It's a mental health helpline at the other end of it. It's counsellors, and there's also an option for you there as well. You can speak to a citizens advice trained advisor if there's stuff around money worries, debt, or even maybe you need to get a chat and point in the right direction to make sure that you're eligible for the various benefits and stuff like that. That's there. That's what I just know, that there is support out there and good people who want to help you as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Have we got any questions from anybody who's been moving through? Yeah.
What do you think is often like the most overlooked detail when you're applying for some sort of funding? Like if someone's funding a project, what do you think sometimes they might need to ask for like an advance on or something like that?
detail. I suppose the level of detail that is missing, but also people tripping up at really silly things, like their budget not adding up, you know, and then maybe putting stuff in the budget that they never spoke about in their application. So it's just making sure that anything that you're asking for in that budget, you've kind of spoke about it, and even it's very clear, because you can't, there's a bit in the budget where it says you want it covered by help musicians, or if it's getting covered by other funders. So anything that's covered by help musicians, you're just being very clear where that's kind of coming from. But also, I think a lot of people, because there's a section where you need to talk about your career to date, right? So like some of your, what do you feel some of your kind of milestones and achievements are? And, you know, most people don't like talking about how fab they are. So I think what we would also say is, if you want, you can get a friend to look over it, get somebody to kind of, because they could be reading it and going, oh, why are you not putting this gig in? Or is there a review there? And also, if writing an application, if you feel like that's not your strong point, you can also, apart from the budget, all the rest of the questions, it's only really 4 questions, you can upload a video and you can talk about it as well. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now. Or you can have somebody what's called a co-applicant, who could be like a friend or a band member or a manager or whoever, they can go and get editing rights to the application as well under the co-applicant, and they can help you with it.
Well, that sounds amazing. We touched on AI really briefly at the end of the panel, but maybe before considering that as a tool, it sounds like there's quite a lot of access support in terms of writing help musicians application.
I'd also book in, so we do something that's called pre-application support calls, and it's just before you make an application, phone up, it would be myself or somebody else, and we just make sure, like, we can't rubber stamp it sadly and help you physically or write it or take this and put that in type of thing, but we can just make sure that you're in the right lane, that what you're applying for is eligible, and if you're not successful, we can also give you feedback on what would maybe make it stronger the next time.
Brilliant.
And the majority of people who get funding, they've actually had a couple of cracks in the whip at it as well. So that's also like an important thing, is, although it can suck because you're not able, you're kind of delaying potentially what you're going to do, just put it back in again.
That's maybe a really good takeaway for everybody. So in terms of that, maybe once because it's going to be a big part of your careers, funding is going to be a really big part of your careers, writing bids and so on. Maybe just take that into consideration, that actually part of that piece of work is submitting unsuccessful applications. And you don't always get, so it's amazing to hear that help musicians provide feedback and responding to that feedback and resubmitting and keeping going. It's, you know, the amount of people I meet will submit one application and I understand why it's not, and then they're unsuccessful and then think that's it for me on funding. It's a huge percentage of people that I meet, but and I do, you know, to reiterate, I understand why, because it can be really disappointing after putting a lot of work into something, but actually it's part of the process, I think, in terms of just, you know, in that funding space.
I also think most funders, so I've done a few kind of events with the people at Youth Music and PRSF, and they're also trying to be as accessible as they can. So even just getting in touch with them and say, hey, can we have a chat? Or if you're having a look around at some of the kind of local events it's on, if you see those people there, go and have a chat with them, and, you know, ask for an email and stuff. And please, like, by all means, share my email with the people here. And if if it's, again, if you need some help for help musicians, I could happily chat to you, or I'll plug you into the appropriate person who can help you as well. So,
thanks, David. Yeah. That's brilliant. David's going a really long way to give you some brilliant advice today. So can we have a big round of applause for David, please?